What if I told you that the person who keeps returning to your mind quietly, persistently, almost as if they never truly leave, was never random to begin with? Not in the way your life unfolded, not in the strange timing that brought you together when you least expected it, and certainly not in that subtle, almost unsettling feeling that something about them feels familiar even though you have no memory to justify it. Because according to Carl Jung, some connections do not originate in the visible world, they begin much deeper than that, in a place beneath thought, beneath logic, within the unconscious, where patterns are formed long before we become aware of them. And when a connection is born from that depth, it does not announce itself loudly, it does not arrive with certainty. Instead, it reveals itself slowly, through moments that seem to echo one another, through encounters that feel slightly too aligned, as if something unseen is arranging them just beyond your awareness. You find yourself thinking of them without intention, and somehow they appear. You begin noticing traces of them in places where they should not be. And gradually, almost without realizing it, you start to feel as though you are being drawn into something you cannot fully explain. But not every connection that feels meaningful is meant to remain. Some people enter your life not to stay, but to awaken something within you that has been waiting silently to be seen. And once that awakening begins, their role, whether you understand it or not, may already be complete. So let me ask you, have you ever met someone who felt less like a beginning and more like a recognition? As if your mind was trying to understand something your soul had already accepted. Jung called them synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that go far beyond chance. And today we will explore the 5 psychological signs the universe sends when a connection is not accidental, but deeply meaningful, because once you begin to see these signs clearly, you may realize that some encounters were never random, they were invitations. The first sign is not attraction, it is recognition. Not the kind that begins on the surface, not something you can explain through logic, personality, or shared experiences, but a much quieter phenomenon, one that unfolds beneath thought, where your mind is not leading but following something it does not yet understand. You look at them, and instead of excitement, something within you becomes still. Not empty, not numb, but deeply still, as if a part of you that has been searching without words has suddenly paused, recognizing something it has been waiting for long before this moment ever arrived. There is no urgency to impress, no impulse to perform, no need to become anything other than what you are in that instant. And that is precisely what makes it so disarming, because what you feel does not resemble the usual patterns of attraction. It feels older, more familiar, as if this encounter is not the beginning of something new, but the continuation of something unfinished. Yet, you know rationally that you have never met this person before, at least not in any way your memory can access. From a Jungian perspective, this experience emerges when another person activates what he described as an inner image, a structure within the psyche that has been silently forming over years, shaped by your desires, your wounds, your unmet potentials, and the parts of yourself you have not yet fully lived. You are not seeing them as they are, you are seeing them through the lens of something already inside you. And when that inner image finds a living reflection, even imperfectly, the response is immediate and powerful, not because of who they objectively are, but because of what they awaken within your unconscious. This is why the feeling arrives without explanation, why it bypasses reason, why it convinces you almost instantly that this moment carries meaning. But here is where the misunderstanding begins, because what feels like recognition is not always a sign of alignment, it is often a sign of activation. You are not responding to the person themselves, but to the symbol they represent, a symbol carrying fragments of your own unlived self, your hidden desires, or even your unresolved past. And when that symbol appears in human form, it does not feel like curiosity, it feels like truth. And this is the point where many people lose clarity. They mistake the depth of the feeling for evidence of destiny. They assume that because they have never experienced something this intense, it must be real in a permanent sense. But intensity is not proof of truth. It is proof that something inside you has been touched at a level you rarely access. And sometimes what feels the deepest is not what is meant to stay, it is what is meant to reveal. Because, in the language of the unconscious, recognition does not mean you have found the right person. It means you have encountered a reflection powerful enough to show you something about yourself you were not yet ready to see. And that is why this first sign is so dangerous, because it does not feel like illusion, it feels like awakening, but awakening in its earliest form is often indistinguishable from projection. The second sign does not arrive through feeling alone. It begins to appear in the structure of your reality itself. Not in obvious ways, not in anything dramatic or undeniable, but in subtle repetitions that feel too consistent to ignore, as if life itself has started to echo a single presence back to you from different directions. You think of them, not deliberately, not with intention, but almost as a passing thought, and somehow they appear. Not once, not in a way you can easily dismiss, but again and then again, until coincidence begins to feel insufficient as an explanation. You encounter their name in unexpected places, you hear words that mirror conversations you have shared. Situations unfold with a timing that feels slightly too precise, as if something beneath the surface is arranging moments just beyond your awareness. Jung described this as synchronicity, not events connected by cause, but by meaning. It arises from the interaction between your inner world and what you perceive externally. This is why these moments feel personal, why they seem to follow you, why it feels as though reality itself is trying to communicate something. But here is where perception becomes dangerous, because when patterns repeat, the mind begins to assign intention. It starts to build a narrative. It tells you that this must be confirmation, that this connection is being supported, even guided. And slowly, almost without noticing, you stop observing the pattern and begin believing in it. But synchronicity is not proof that someone is meant to remain in your life. It is a signal that something within you has reached a level of readiness, and these repeated moments are not directing you toward a person, they are directing your attention inward, because what is being activated is not the relationship itself, but the meaning you are projecting onto it. And until you understand that distinction, you may continue to follow the pattern without realizing that it was never leading you to them. But back to yourself. There was a woman who kept meeting the same man, not in a way that felt forced, not through effort or intention, but through moments that seemed to arrange themselves without her participation, as if life had quietly decided to place him in her path again and again. A coffee shop on an ordinary morning, a train station at the end of a long day, a gathering where neither of them were expected to be. Each encounter felt small on the surface, yet something about the repetition began to carry weight until coincidence no longer felt like a sufficient explanation. So she told herself what most people do in that moment. This has to mean something, this has to be fate. But what she did not see, at least not at first, was not the pattern around him, but the shift within herself. Because every time she stood in his presence, something unfamiliar began to emerge. Her body softened. Her mind became quiet. There was no tension, no need to anticipate, no fear of saying the wrong thing. For the first time, she felt safe without effort, seen without performance. And in that stillness, a realization began to surface. It was not about him. It was about what she had been tolerating before. He did not enter her life to become her forever. He entered to reveal a truth she could no longer ignore, that love, real love, was never supposed to feel like chaos. The third sign is the one most people misunderstand or avoid entirely, because it does not feel like love. It feels uncomfortable, unsettling, at times even painful. This is the moment when the connection begins to move beyond the surface, beyond attraction or coincidence, and starts touching something much deeper within you. You notice reactions that do not seem proportional, emotions that rise too quickly, too intensely, as if something old has been disturbed. You feel exposed in ways you cannot fully explain, not because of what they do, but because of what their presence reveals. According to Carl Jung, this is the encounter with the shadow, the parts of your psyche that have been pushed aside, suppressed, or ignored. Not because they were unimportant, but because they were inconvenient, painful, or incompatible with the version of yourself you learned to present to the world. And when someone arrives who unknowingly touches those hidden layers, the experience does not feel gentle. It feels activating. They may mirror your fears, your insecurities, your patterns of attachment, or even the parts of you that you have not yet allowed yourself to become. This is why the connection feels so intense, not because they are perfect for you, but because they are revealing something real within you. And this is where many people become confused. They interpret the emotional intensity as a sign of depth, of destiny, of something worth holding on to. But what is being activated is not always meant to bind you to that person. It is meant to bring awareness, because the shadow does not emerge to punish you. It emerges to be seen. And sometimes the person who triggers it is not the one who will walk beside you, but the one who forces you to finally face yourself. The fourth sign is not something you feel in the moment. It is something you begin to notice afterward. Because after meeting them, something within you does not return to the way it was before. At first, the change is subtle, almost unnoticeable. But over time, it becomes undeniable. You begin to see your life differently, not because they told you to change, not because they tried to guide you, but because their presence disrupted something you can no longer ignore. The things you once tolerated start to feel heavier. The patterns you once repeated begin to lose their hold, and slowly, without forcing it, you begin to step away from versions of yourself that no longer feel true. Jung described this as the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are, beyond conditioning, beyond survival, beyond the roles you learned to play. And sometimes this process does not begin in solitude. It begins through another person, not because they complete you, but because they disturb the balance you had grown comfortable living in. They make you aware, not through instruction, but through contrast, through the way they reflect what is missing, what is suppressed, or what has been waiting quietly beneath your daily life. And once that awareness begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you now feel. This is why the connection feels so significant, not because of what it promises, but because of what it changes. And this is the deeper truth most people overlook. The person who transforms you is not always the one who stays. Sometimes they are simply the catalyst, the one who arrives at the precise moment your life is ready to shift and leaves once that shift has begun. The fifth sign is not something intense, it is something quiet. And because of that, many people overlook it, because they have been conditioned to associate love with effort, with uncertainty, with the feeling of having to reach, to prove, to hold on before something slips away. But when a connection is truly aligned, it does not feel like chasing. There is no constant need to question where you stand, no underlying tension that forces you to analyze every word, every silence, every shift in energy. Instead, there is space, a natural unfolding. Conversations happen without strain. Presence does not feel like something you have to earn. And most importantly, you do not feel the need to abandon yourself in order to keep the connection alive. What is aligned with your deeper self does not require you to fracture your identity. It does not ask you to become smaller, quieter, or more acceptable just to be chosen. And yet many people ignore this because they are drawn to intensity, to unpredictability, to the emotional highs and lows that create the illusion of depth. But instability is not depth, it is confusion. And confusion often feels like passion to a mind that has been conditioned by inconsistency. This is why the absence of struggle can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, because there is nothing to chase, nothing to fix, nothing to decode, only presence, only clarity. And that clarity can feel almost too simple to trust. But here is the truth. What is meant for you does not create anxiety as its foundation. It does not require you to constantly reach beyond yourself. It meets you where you are. And in that meeting, there is no urgency, only alignment, a quiet sense that nothing is being forced and nothing needs to be chased. So how do you know if this person is truly meant for you? Not through signs, not through intensity, but through something far more honest. You ask yourself a single question. Does this connection bring me closer to who I really am? Or does it slowly pull me away from myself? Because real alignment does not confuse you. It does not make you question your worth. It does not require you to shrink, to adjust, or to silence parts of yourself just to be accepted. What is truly right for you supports your wholeness. It does not fragment it. And this is where clarity begins, because the universe does not send you someone you must lose yourself to keep. It sends you someone who allows you to remain and even become more of who you are. And in that presence, there is no inner conflict, only a quiet recognition that nothing essential within you needs to be sacrificed for this connection to exist. And maybe this is the part no one wants to hear, because it does not match the story we were taught to believe about love. Sometimes the person who feels like destiny is not meant to be your future. They are meant to be your turning point. The one who enters your life at the exact moment you are ready to see something you have avoided, something you have repeated, something you have not yet understood about yourself. And when that realization begins to unfold, the connection may no longer feel the same. Not because it was false, but because its purpose is being fulfilled. And sometimes what you call loss is actually completion. Because the real connection, the one that does not confuse you, the one that does not require you to question your worth or abandon your center, often arrives after you have learned what you needed to learn, not as a reward, but as alignment. And maybe you didn't find this moment by accident, because according to Carl Jung, even the ideas we encounter are not random. They appear when something within us is ready to recognize them. So if something in this has resonated with you, even quietly, just acknowledge it. You don't need to explain it. Just write, "I'm paying attention." Because the moment you begin to notice is the moment your life begins to shift. Not all at once, but in ways you will not be able to ignore anymore.